welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and got an interesting topic to deal with today. When you surf around on the internet, just how safe is it? And when you Google something or you Yahoo something, what happens to all those sites that you go to? Does somebody keep track of them? Do they keep some kind of an inventory and then turn around and use that information to market items to you? Well, I think you'll be surprised to the answer to that question with our guest today, Katherine Albrecht, and she has her own talk show and she writes about this. So join me with my conversation now with Katherine Albrecht. We are delighted today to have with us Katherine Albrecht. She's a host, a radio host, which we like radio hosts around here. And she hosts a program covering the truth. And today we want to talk to her about protecting yourself online. Now, this is a huge topic. And hopefully we can squeeze a lot of information out of her real quickly because she's very up to date on how we can do that. So, Katherine, what a delight to have you today.
Hey, Perry, I'm so glad to be on with you, too, and God bless you and your listeners.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Well, this is a big topic, and how exposed are we with being online the way we are today?
You know, I think most people have no idea that some of the services that we most rely on the Internet, that we just think of kind of the big freebies in the sky, actually aren't free after all. They're coming at a very high cost, and that cost is our privacy. And I think probably the one most people are familiar with, and the number one website on the Internet, of course, is Google. So we can start there. People don't realize when they use Google that Google is not in the business of just answering your every question because they want to help you out. Google is actually in the business of finding out information about you, and they use their search feature as a way to figure out what's on people's minds and learn more about people, their medical conditions, their financial circumstances, their concerns, their interests, their preferences. Everything that you type into the Google search engine when you're using it to search gets logged and recorded in a giant database with your name right at the very top. And that information now is being consolidated with things like Google Street View, a picture of the front of your home. If you're using Google Calendars, they're keeping tabs on where you go and what you do. If you're using, Google satellite images would have a picture of your backyard. If you're using Google Books, they know what you're reading. So you put all of that together, and then you combine it also, of course, with Gmail, which allows Google to make a record of and read all of your email correspondence and pull out the keywords and the concepts and the phrases and the ideas and all the things you talk about in your email, and they're putting it into these incredibly detailed dossiers of personal information on people all around the globe. And whenever I talk to people about the privacy implications of this, they'll usually say one of two things. They'll either say, well, you know, Google is providing me with all of these free products, though, Katherine, so why would I want to give that up? And my response to that is that, well, first of all, when was the last time a multi-billion-dollar international corporation gave you all of its products for free?
Yeah.
If you pause and think about that,
right,
you got to say, well, no, that doesn't make sense. And the reason it doesn't make sense is because those are not the products. They're the bait, and you are the product.
Are they selling this information?
Well, what they do, they're compiling it and collecting it, and they're using it so that if you're an advertiser and you want to reach all the people with an interest in fill in the blank, then Google will serve your ad to that very narrowly defined population. And the way that they do that is by identifying what everybody's interested in and who segments into which groups. So the real problem there, and I said there's two responses. One of them is sort of, well, but hang on, all the products are free. And then once people begin to realize, ooh, you mean they're really watching what I do, and maybe it's not the safest thing in the world to have all that information in a single place, then the next question that I would get for years when I talk about this is, well, what do we do instead? You know, is there any solution? So I actually helped to develop a solution, and I helped to create a website called startpage.com, which is a private way to access 100% Google results without any of the privacy invasion.
How do you do that?
Well, what you do, you go to startpage.com, and you can remember start just like S-T-A-R-T, page, like you want to start over or start protecting your privacy, or for a lot of people, Google is their start page, the first page they see, so we just named ours startpage.com. When you get there, You can type in whatever you want to search for. So you can put in, I don't know, dandruff or bankruptcy or whatever, cancer, whatever you're interested in that you want to be private. We will then take your search term, strip out anything that would identify you. We submit it to Google through our servers, get the answers, strip out any tracking cookies or other things Google would put on it, give it back to you in total privacy, and then we delete all records of your visit. So we don't have your IP address. We don't know who has been on our website. And if we got, hacked, because Google got hacked a while back, the Chinese government got into Gmail accounts to identify dissidents to round them up and put them in labor camps. That couldn't happen through Startpage because if, God forbid, anyone were to hack or subpoena our records, there's literally nothing there. It's just a big blank because we don't store anything. So it's startpage.com. It's an easy way for people to actually take this privacy message and put it into action, because I think so often we feel like there's nothing we can do and it's just kind of hopeless. And I wanted to change that by giving people a proactive thing that they can do to begin to take control over their own privacy.
This is wonderful. Is there a charge for this?
It's totally free. And the way it works is when you do a search, if you search for, pickup trucks, you will get anywhere from 1 to 3 ads at the top for pickup trucks. They're not based on your search history or anything about you. They're just based on the thing that you searched for. You can choose to click on those or not click on them, but that's how it's funded. And we do have a paid service that's going to be coming out later this year that I'm super excited about. It's a private email alternative to Gmail. It's going to be called StartMail. It's going to come out late 2013. And what it will allow you to do is have all of your email encrypted, and we won't even have access to your email because it will be on an encrypted disk that even we can't get a hold of. So talk about privacy. It's the exact opposite of what Gmail's doing. And I can, if you're interested, I could give you a link to where your listeners could actually get a free trial when it comes out.
Yeah, where's that?
All right. Well, all they would have to do is write an email to beta, that's like alpha beta, BETA, at startpage.com. And that's because we're doing beta testing. We would ask them to be beta testers, meaning kick the tires for us and let us know what they think when it first comes out before it's released to the public.
Wow.
And when you send that, we'll send you back an automatic confirmation that you're on the list, and you'll be the first to actually get a free trial account before it becomes available for a fee to the public.
Well, thank you for making that offer. Is there a delay from the time, if we go to Startpage, we use Startpage, is there a delay from the time we do the search where you go to Google and come back?
You know, it's amazing with the way the Internet is these days that we're able to do that at the flash of an eye. It's as quick as Google. If you look at milliseconds, it takes a couple of milliseconds longer, but your human eyes won't notice the difference. Wow. The other thing, though, is we don't have all the bells and whistles that Google has. If you want to go into, Google blogs and Google this and that, we don't have all that. It's just a straight search results. But we've actually found through our experience and research that about 95% of people's searches are perfectly well done through Startpage. You don't need all those bells and whistles off of Google. So the other thing you can do is when you get to startpage.com, look underneath the search box, and you'll see a little link there that says add Startpage to Firefox or add Startpage to Internet Explorer. If you click that and follow the instructions, you know that little box in the upper right-hand corner in your browser that just defaults to Google? Yeah. You can switch that over so it defaults to Startpage. So anytime you want to do a search, you've got your little private window up in the upper right-hand corner. It's a pretty easy thing to do, and it's nice. And you still have the Google option. You can pull down and switch back to Google. Right. But we would encourage people to just try taking that Google addiction needle out of your arm and try just to go 7 days on Startpage and see if you can just break that Big Brother habit. You know,
Katherine, you've uncovered, I think, a below-the-surface fear we all have, and that is how private is all of this mass communication, and what are we doing to ourselves when we go to these services and go all over. And then I can't help but think that Google, in the end, has got some kind of a political agenda. I'm sure you're aware of what happened to them on Easter Sunday. And
with that Chavez thing, my gosh.
I thought, well, why are they doing this? I mean, do they have an agenda? And therefore, could they take our Google searches and see what our interests are and turn it into some kind of political advantage?
that's the thing actually that got me started on this whole road. Is a couple years ago, remember when the H1N1 flu was a big thing, the swine flu and the bird flu?
Yeah.
Well, what we found out that Google had done is Google actually made a bet with the Centers for Disease Control that they could predict the location of flu outbreaks before the CDC. Yeah, and the way Google did it was so awful. What they did is they boasted that they can tell based on what people search for whether or not they have the flu. So if you go on and you look up chicken soup and Robitussin and my company's sick leave policy, then they go, boom, we've got a live one. And then they made this map, and they pinpointed the location of each individual whose searches showed that they had the flu, and they had this map covered with red dots of each of these individuals, and then they handed it to the Centers for Disease Control and said, look, we beat you to it. Wow. So that freaks me out, because if you'll recall back then, there was some real concern that the CDC may actually be going home to home at some future point and force vaccinating people.
Right.
So you would be able to figure out what homes to go to, who to quarantine, who to round up. And not only in issues of public health, I mean, some people may say, well, I don't know, that's a good thing. But you could do that with anything. You could figure out who were the people who were opposed to abortion, or who were the people who held Christian viewpoints, or who were the people who held fill in the blank. And we do know that historically, my gosh, Stalin and Hitler would have given anything to have access to that kind of personal detail so they could identify everybody who opposed them and just round them all up in one swoop.
Well, as horrible as it is, I mean, that's the world we're living in. That's the reality of it. It's incredible. Well, Katherine, I just love what you're doing. It's startpage.com for our viewers and listeners. You want to check it out, S-T-A-R-T, page.com. And if you want to be a part of the trial basis coming up, you want to go to beta at startpage.com.
Yeah, that's an email there. Just write an email to beta@startpage.com and just mention in your email that you heard about this through Katherine's appearance on this radio show. And that's Katherine with a K. And my website is kmashow.com. I do a daily radio show also.
kmashow.com. Well, Katherine, thank you. You're a delight. Blessings on you. And let's stay in touch, okay?
Thank you so much. God bless you, too. And I appreciate the chance to tell people about Start Page.
Interesting, to say the least, and I don't think we realize how vulnerable we really are in this high-tech world, so be careful, okay? Well, coming up next, just what is happening in North Korea? Well, we're going to have a very special guest who writes about that coming up next here on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at the Dove TV. Did you know that when you support the Dove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Welcome back. Well, we are all very concerned about what's happening in and around North Korea, and today we are honored to have with us Michael Maloof. He's author of a book, A Nation Forsaken. There's a picture of it there on the screen for those of you watching on the Dove TV. He's also a contributor to WorldNet Daily and former security policy analyst in the Office of the Secretary of Defense. Michael, thank you for giving us a few moments of your time today. We are all concerned about what's happening in North Korea. How are you reading this right now?
Well, thanks for having me. I think it's an issue of the 28-year-old young leader seeing how far he can go without creating a catastrophic event on the peninsula. I think he's trying to prove something to his military leadership, who have been skeptical about him and his father before him. Of course, they loved Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea. But and I think the joint U.S. military and South Korean exercises probably gave him a basis then to start posturing in this fashion with his rhetoric and what have you. It's reached a crescendo to the point where it has raised concerns that we're putting additional assets into the area, and also to protect under treaty obligation the South Koreans that we have. On the other hand, you also see the Chinese mobilizing troops they have a treaty obligation to protect North Korea. So this 28-year-old is really manipulating things right now, and we think in an effort to try and gain concessions, and as soon as the joint exercises are over, things are probably going to cool down unless something precipitates that. And there are a number of factors that can cause that, not the least of which would be some provocation somewhere that might just ignite this whole thing and into a full-blown war between the North and the South.
Do you think?
And that's the major concern right now.
Excuse me. Do you think he's mature enough to back off, or do you think he's just trigger happy and wants to make a statement?
Well, I think he's not mature enough. I think that's why some adult supervision is having to step in. And the Chinese actually have now called to Beijing the ambassadors for North, South Korea, as well as the United States, in an effort to try and figure out ways to tone this entire thing down, because it is reaching a point where any episode could absolutely ignite everything. And one of the things I'm watching has to do with this Kaesong Industrial Park, in which it's a joint North-South Korean enterprise in which 123 South Korean companies are located. In the North and the South have workers who are employed there, and they have not. The North has not allowed some 800 South Koreans to return in their shift.
Wow.
And now the South Korean defense minister is saying that if necessary, they will undertake a rescue of them, a hostage rescue of them if necessary. That could trigger something off too. So anything can happen, and I think they're trying to have cooler heads prevail here at this juncture. And even our commander in that area has expressed concern. He hasn't seen tensions this high.
All right. So what is North Korea's capabilities militarily? I mean, we know they have nuclear weapons, and, of course, that is certainly a threat. But what do we send? A couple of F-22s over there. We got 3 ships in the water. We sent a B-2 over there. Is that enough of a deterrent?
Not really. If he was really determined to launch something, first of all, I don't think he's suicidal. I would hope he's not suicidal. But he has a capability. He has a 1 million-man army staged on the border. He has all kinds of artillery. If those troops moved, theoretically, they could overwhelm Seoul within a matter of days. And we have 28,500 U.S. troops sandwiched in between Seoul and the 30-mile space up to the DMZ.
Wow.
So it would be the ability to stop them wouldn't be able to be reached until those North Korean troops reach like Busan, which is further south. So there is that possibility, but the hope is that this is not going to happen. I know the Chinese have no stomach for any war, even though they're under a treaty obligation to back North Korea in case there is an attack. Nor do we. And the hope is that ultimately the kids are going to want to have some kind of concession of some sort. The other folks who know North Korea quite well, experts say, what we ought to be doing is not granting concessions, but tightening sanctions on the flow of financial resources that he gets his hard currency from. That Kaesong Industrial Park is a major revenue-generating area for the North Koreans. They have something like 20,000, 30,000 workers who go to work there.
Wow. So
it is a form of income for them, and that could be shut down immediately, and he's even threatened to bomb it at one point. So, but 123 South Korean companies are located there. So anything can trigger this guy. So we're talking brinksmanship here.
Is there now a UN human rights violation consideration going on with the detaining of these employees?
Not yet. They've allowed a few of them to go. They're not quite at the hostage stage yet. Mm-hmm. They're being allowed to stay there. There is work going on at the Kaesong Industrial Park, from what I can gather. and the production is still ongoing. But if they don't allow them to leave, and they certainly don't allow any other South Koreans to go back to work, that could very much affect the ability of those companies to even function.
Yeah, Michael, it's been said that one of the concerns of North Korea is its nuclear supplementing of products and needed items to Iran. Is there any connection in that? And is North Korea considered now the testing of nuclear weapons for Iran? Because Iran now, they know if they start testing those things, they'd probably be wiped out. But is there a connection there?
Well, you can't rule it out. There is a historical connection between North Korea and Iran in terms of missile development. Iran received some of its basic missile capabilities from the North Koreans years ago. The fact, too, that North Korea now has a uranium enrichment program in addition to the plutonium Yangbian facility that they're now thinking of starting up is also cause for concern, because that does generate weapons-grade uranium enrichment, rather, and that's something that the Iranians, if they decided to go take the nuclear weapons path, could easily acquire from the North Koreans. The Iranians are not quite assessed to have that capability to enrich up to 90%, although they're working toward it. They can enrich up to 20%, which is useful for medical purposes. Much lower grade is useful for fuel for reactors, nuclear reactors, which are used for generating electricity.
So we really don't know the temperament of Kim. I mean, it appears that he's young, obviously. He's trying to make a statement. He's trying to draw his line in the sand as being some kind of a tough guy. So if everything cools down, everybody backs off, we still don't know if he's trigger happy.
Well, the potential is there. He's demonstrated that he's prepared to go the brinkmanship route. The fact that he was educated partially in the West doesn't seem to matter. Some folks had suggested, well, he's been educated in the West, maybe that'll have a calming effect on him. But there's been historical precedent to show that that's not the case. The Al-Qaeda leadership was educated in the West. You had Pol Pot, who was educated in Paris. Right. He killed 1 million of his people. Al-Assad, the president of Syria, was educated in London. So the fact that they have a Western exposure apparently has very little to do with calming them down. If this kid wants to show off and prove things to his military, he's gonna do it. Now the indication is by some experts is that he's got to do something, because all of this rhetoric with all of this rhetoric, and he does nothing, then the military is going to wonder, well, what was the point? So you can't rule out the possibility he might try to fire a few missiles or artillery at a South Korean island someplace.
Some have said that North Korea is somewhat like Kuwait. They have this big military emphasis and threat, but the infrastructure with the citizens is so weak that if that military or if the leadership was weakened, that the people would somewhat just kind of collapse and give in. Do you think that's true?
Well, the military is much of the foreign revenue that he does acquire goes to the military. Yeah. So, and in some cases, it will depend upon how strong his military can hold out. Now, they're looking to they've been indoctrinated with invading the South and taking and reunifying by force if necessary. So that's in their psyche, and I think the military will, given that force, will be quite formidable Now, then the question will be, will he be able to maintain a supply line to them? And that if he did anything, it probably would be just a matter of weeks.
Very interesting. Well, Michael, thank you. Where can people get a copy of your book? At WorldNet Daily?
At WorldNet Daily and also at Amazon.
Okay.
.com. It's called A Nation Forsaken. It's on the electromagnetic pulse.
Okay.
And how the federal government's basically ignored this potential threat. And, of course, the North Korean threat of having nuclear weapons accentuates this problem even more. And I might add that Secretary of Defense Hagel this morning raised concerns about North Korea's nuclear capabilities. So it's not just wishful thinking.
All right, check it out, WorldNet Daily or Amazon.com. And that's Michael Maloof. And again, A Nation Forsaken. Michael, thank you for your time and thank you for your work. Keep it up, my friend.
Thanks so much.
All right, talk to you soon. All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at the Dove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at the Dove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Well, one of the most unique coming together of ministries is taking place right here in our own backyard, and that is the collaborating of two great organizations that's touching a lot of young people. That's Youth for Christ and Hearts with the Mission. They've been working together. Now they're going to join forces and making sure that no young person out there falls through the cracks. And so I had an opportunity to talk to Bud. There we go, Bud and Kevin, about their coming together and a project that they're involved in. And let's join that conversation now. Delighted to have in the studio with us today a couple of Buds in ministry with us, and one of them is Bud, and also Kevin. Bud represents the YFC, and Kevin Hearts with the Mission. And you've heard us for the last several months and weeks talk about the fact that these two great youth ministries are now joining together, and I think it's just one of the great things that's happening in our community. And guys, I really want to commend your heart and what you guys are doing, and how the Lord has led you to work together. And now you're coming down to the final stages. You're going to form this union, and you're going to open up the City Life Community Center. What's this all about? We'll start with you, Bud.
Well, it's 14, 15 months ago. Kevin and I were, I'm not even sure what we met about in the first place, but I just was, listening to what he was thinking of doing and what the needs of Hearts with a Mission were in regards to recreation space for their kids. Also, we had been mentoring. Hearts with a Mission has been, opening the door for Youth for Christ mentors to get involved in the lives of kids, and talking about how that's been working and connecting, and the value of having relationships that will go beyond just the time when the kids are at the shelter. And so out of that, Kevin shared his interest in having more rec space and doing something like a community center. And Youth for Christ for the last 15 years has been doing youth centers and community centers, and so that's where we saw really an opportunity to network and come together. And it's been fun. Been fun to work with Kevin. Been fun to bring this whole project together.
Well, here we are again, building something.
Yeah, go figure, right?
And it's going to be next door to your current facility.
Yeah, we're in the final phases of getting all of our permits lined up, and we've actually tore down the two buildings that were already there, so we're committed.
Yeah.
It's all in, and it's exciting of what God's doing. I think that's the most important thing that Bud and I have wanted to be a part of.
Well, what's so interesting, and I just want to commend both of you, in today's real world of ministry and resources and yet effectiveness, you realize there was more to be gained by joining the two ministries and working together than there would be you doing your thing and him doing your thing, and then somewhere along the line maybe they cross. And I think this is going to set a trend in the future where a lot of these parachurch ministries are going to be involved. We've got to come together. I mean, there's some resources among all of us that we can work together, and at the end of the day, the community is served. And I want to talk about the City Life Community Center. Now, it's also going to house both of your administrations.
Correct.
But it's going to also be a community center for young people, because Hearts with a Mission, you don't have room, you can't do that, and you need space to do that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Give me a little thought on that.
Yeah, one of the things that is a requirement of youth that are staying at the shelter is that they have to go to school. And really, we didn't have a place where we could have a computer lab or a place for kids just to go be kids and hang out. One of the things that as Hearts with a Mission now has been open for 3 years, we've learned that kids really need counseling, and they need somebody that is an expertise in that way, but we didn't have room for it. So this will give us an off-site right next door, a direct connection where our kids can go over there, they can do their homework, they can receive counseling, but then we can open it up to like parent groups, and we can open it up to a foster care license where parents can, people that want to engage and would be willing to be a foster parent, where they can come down, they can be trained, and we now have the room to be able to do that.
This is also common, right, Bud, for ministry?
Sure.
Yeah, because you can't necessarily do that at your place directly, but indirectly you can at this place.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah, and bouncing off of your comment earlier about us coming together, and really, truly, we hope this is a spark for, more, Christ-centered, Christ-centered collaboration. The organizations are going to stay separate, but it really became evident as we were chatting is, both organizations network perfectly. We mesh perfectly in the life of a kid. And so I think there's room for other organizations really in the life of a kid and the life of an individual, and really this is beyond kids. It's community oriented. Right. And so we want to engage the lives of kids, but also their families, and that's where, boy, the church can come and really support a kid, a family, and be Christ in their life.
And that's the other thing I want to kind of point out here. A couple of things. Number one, you're going to have an event coming up April 11th, and this is going to be kind of the launch of the union, so to speak. It's going to be held at Mountain View Christian Fellowship downtown on the 11th. So mark that down on your calendar. You're going to come and hear a lot about how these two organizations are working together. But here's what's really neat about this, and correct me if I don't have all the details, but so often churches wanted to do something to the community, but there wasn't a place or a way to get the community served. And so by creating the City Life Community Center, you've actually created a platform for all the churches. If they want to make a difference in a young person's life, it all comes together at that place. And am I explaining that right?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah, and the reality is, I know it's our passion, and Kevin too. We have our community and we have the body of Christ, and we want to be kind of the glue that maybe comes and glues those things together, and allows the body of Christ to reach effectively into the families of our neighbors, and really impact our community through being Christ to people in our neighborhood.
And the testimonies coming out of both of your organizations separately and then collaboratively is that it's amazing to me how many kids are hurting, how many kids need help. I mean, we hear these numbers, we hear these figures, and if we're not careful, they just kind of null our brain and we pass them off. The fact is, it's a real need in this community. I mean, you're serving homeless children. I mean, in Jackson County, Oregon, yes, you're serving students in the campuses and things like that, coming from broken homes or fatherless homes or drug homes and everything else that kind of comes together. I mean, what an incredible opportunity for the gospel to reach our community at that level. Because if we can impact a young person, we change their life forever.
There's an opportunity for the church, I think, probably as ever before in this nation, where people are desperate. Kids are desperate for somebody to love them. I mean, the breakdown in the family and the breakdown in really our community as a whole, that we just don't have aunts, uncles nearby. We don't have neighbors that are involved in our lives. Kids are abandoned at a high level. And that really became evident. You know, we're working with the same kids, and they're at a homeless place, but we're working with them before they get there or after they get there, but the same kids. And there's just such an opportunity for people that love the Lord and love others to get involved and meet those needs.
You know, Hearts with a Mission, Kevin, has been somewhat a model, because that all born out of your heart reading a newspaper article that there was a lot of homeless kids out of there. I mean, I'm paraphrasing it, but that's what happened. And here we are several years later, and you're full, aren't you?
Yeah, and it shouldn't be acceptable. I mean, I think, you know, somebody that loves Jesus, you know, you should be able to look at the situation and say, I'm not going to allow that to happen. You know, and sometimes you hear the rally cry, you know, not in my backyard. Well, we should take that, you know, that if it's a matter, every kid that comes through those doors is lacking one thing, and that's love. And that's something that all of us have the ability, you know, with Christ in us, to give that to them.
Well, I want to remind you, mark this down, April 11th, and it's going to be at Mountain View Christian Fellowship, where it's going to be an event. It's the launching event of Hearts with a Mission and Youth for Christ, launching the City Life Community Center right here in Medford. And I can also say that by God's grace, about 80% of the funds needed to do this are already in place.
Absolutely.
Through various means and miracles, you know. So to 20% to finish off a community center really is hardly anything, and we can accomplish that. I'm confident of that. But the other part of that is, I know people who are saying, what can I do for the Lord? And this center is going to provide an opportunity. Give me some volunteer ideas, people.
Well, the project itself, whether you want to come down and pound nails and, or you know, sweep a floor, whatever, that's going to be part of it. But, you know, as Kevin has said a number of different times, it's like when the project's done, the work is really just beginning. And so that's where we're going to need folks that want to get involved and be engaged in. And
you'll train them, volunteers?
Absolutely.
You'll train them how to do the count. Well, what, I don't know. What do you need them for?
Not necessarily the counseling. I mean, even now we have people that are making meals for kids that are staying at the shelter. We can make meals for an entire community. We'll have a place now where we can actually feed, you know, down in the Liberty Park area. Having parenting classes where we can open that up. You know, talk about volunteering. What better way to not really have to know anything other than I'm a parent, I can come support a parent that's hurting. You know, maybe their youth is staying, you know, next door, but I can sit along beside of them.
Well, guys, I am so stoked about what you guys are doing, because I just think this is the trend that we need to do. I think we need to find ways to work together. We serve, in many ways, we serve the same people. In many ways, our supporters are the same people. In many ways, our passion as it relates to Jackson County and beyond is the same. And this is the beginning of something I think is really great. So looking forward to it. April 11th, mark that down. April 11th, going to be at Mountain Christian Fellowship, downtown Medford. Of course, we want to get it downtown because that's close to the center. And I think you need to come and hear the vision, see how maybe you want to get involved financially or volunteer-wise, see what's going on, hear the testimony. Should be a great evening. So, Bud and Kevin, thanks, man.
Oh, thank you, Barry.
You guys are great, all right? Well, I think that kind of collaboration benefits everybody. Well, speaking of young people, our next guest has got a big vision, and it is coming to pass, and we're going to talk to him about it. And Kids in Camp coming up next here on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at the Dove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on the Dove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Well, to kind of follow along with the theme, dealing with Youth for Christ and Hearts with the Mission. How about Christian Camp and Conference Association? We are honored to have with us today Gregg Hunter. He's the president of Christian Camp and Conference Association. And hi, Gregg, where were you Skyping you in from? You in Colorado?
I am in Colorado Springs, Perry.
Well, nice to have you with us today. And wow, I was just looking at the list of camps that you have in Oregon. Wow, you got a ton of them going on. First of all, give us an update. Tell us about your organization.
Well, our mission is to maximize ministry for our member camps and conference centers. So what we do, Perry, is that we try to help them get better at what they do in ministry in areas where they want to improve. We want to provide that for them. So we've got about 830 member camps across the country, and we hold training events. We have a national conference that's kind of our power event of the year where they come and get recharged and ready to go back for another year of ministry. We produce a magazine that's like a trade journal for Christian camping people that they can get ideas for ministry improvement. We're preparing online training for them and other events like that, including regional meetings, so that people in ministry, again, can be ministered to and can get even better at what they do.
Well, you know, the whole camp experience, I don't think there isn't a young person out there that can't point back to a camp where it was monumental in their life. And I want to commend you for keeping that going, because there's something that happens at a camp that doesn't happen anywhere else.
You know, you're so right. We call that the power of camp, and we have a national marketing campaign going on right now that helps to communicate that. We have heard statistics that we can't quite back up yet, but we've heard, perhaps, it may surprise you, and a lot of Christians especially, that there is a study we've heard of that said that 80% of parents in the U.S. today did not have a camp experience in their youth. And so because of that, we feel like in order to convince moms, dads, even youth leaders to consider camp as a viable option for their children for a summer or for a retreat is a bit of an uphill climb. So as an association, we've introduced this campaign called The Power of Camp, because we want to communicate just how life-changing an experience at camp can be.
Now, is it for churches? Can people who can't afford go? I mean, how does all this work?
Well, the campaign is really, we want to saturate the country, starting with Christians, because we believe that they're more likely to see the value in the spiritual growth that their kids can attain while going to camp. So we're going out to a lot of Christian media across the country right now. But we also would be happy. I mean, frankly, I'd love to be on Good Morning America telling the story of the power of camp. And
you are right now. I just want you to know, you're on the Dove. That's just as big.
It's just as important to me. I'm grateful to be here.
No, excuse me. Go ahead.
Well, and so we talk about, you asked the question about helping kids who can't afford to go to camp. We have another initiative that we call Corners of the Field. And we get that from the book of Leviticus, where the command was issued to farmers, and they were told, when you harvest your field, don't go all the way to the corners or the edges of the field, but leave that for the poor and the alien to come and be fed. And we know that if God cares about the physical bodies, we certainly know that he also cares about the heart and the eternal person that needs to come and be fed spiritually. And so we've created this initiative to raise funds for our members to then pay for kids who otherwise may not be able to afford to go to camp.
How does that work?
Well, what we do is we collect funds here. One way that people, if your listeners want to participate, they can go to the website, thepowerofcamp.com.
Okay.
And there are a couple of buttons. One is Find a Camp, and the other one is Send a Kid to Camp. And so if people want to support sending children to camp who otherwise couldn't afford to go, they can make a contribution there, and we will then collect the funds. Our member camps apply for the funds here, and then we distribute the funds for those kids. I'll just tell you this, Perry, I'm passionate about this for another reason, and that is when I was 17 years old, I was an unchurched kid, a pretty rebellious and angry kid who felt unloved and unlovable. And I was invited by a youth leader to go to camp. And I told him I can't possibly afford to go. I have to work, and my parents aren't going to send me to a camp. He said, what if I could get you paid for? And I said, then I'm in. And he said, you have to work for it. So we pulled some weeds in Mrs. Herman's garden, and Mrs. Herman graciously paid me to go to camp. Now, I have to confess, I went to camp to meet girls and met Jesus instead, and I think I got the better end of the deal.
Wow, that's wonderful. Well, listen, I'm looking at your list of Oregon camps. It's amazing how many you got out there.
Well, yeah, there are about, by my count, there are about 21 camps. There are some great Christian camps who are not members yet of our association, but there are 21 camps, people that we love that are doing in your state.
All right. So the impact, you have all kinds of things, and the impact of non-Christian kids going to these camps is substantial, and your own story is verifies that.
Well, that's true, and there's a term that we use in Christian camping. It's called temporary community, and we find that it is the most powerful experience for a child to get out of their day-to-day environment, out of the pressure, whether it's from peers or parents, or even pressures they put on themselves to be somebody. And so it's a constant noise, a constant force in their lives. And so when they get away from that and they get into a temporary community, all of a sudden they don't have to pretend to be anything. Mm-hmm. They don't have to try so hard to be somebody that they really don't want to be. They actually then, like I did, can think about my future, and particularly in light of this God I hear about who loves me and wants a relationship with me. And he paid the price through his son for me to get into that relationship with him. I found it an undeniable experience and invitation that I couldn't turn down. When God's love was expressed to me that way in a camp environment, I finally could understand what it meant. And so, again, that temporary community is so valuable and so powerful. Some of our members who do just what we call outreach camping, that is, not to church kids or church groups that come in, and there's some who do exclusively that they say between 33 and 40% of the kids who come to camp make a first-time decision to follow Christ. Now, Perry, where else do we find that kind of number? Where else do we find that kind of effectiveness? Churches and youth leaders do a fantastic job in their local community, but it's hard for them to reach out to the unchurched kids and get those kinds of results. Even up in where you are in the Northwest, in a Washington camp told me last year that over the summer, they ask on the last night of camp for kids to raise their hand if they've made a first-time commitment to Christ or a recommitment to him. And 6 out of 10 kids raised their hands. Wow. Now, again, I would say camping has an undeniable power in drawing people to God that I'm just so ecstatic to be able to support it, to say I'm a product, I'm a camp kid, and I'd encourage your listeners and viewers to consider sending a kid to camp.
Well, Greg, there's one thing today that's really alarming to me, and that is as convenient as this digital world is, it's also trapping kids. I am amazed how many young people are addicted to some kind of an electronic device, and what that is doing to families, what it's doing to attention span. I'm an old 4-H guy, so I believe in agriculture. I want to see kids on the farm, but something to get them away from all of this addiction outside into God's creation, and camp certainly can be part of that.
Yeah, it is powerful that way, and I'm a farm kid too. I was raised in the Northwest, worked on a farm in the summers in Washington, so I'm with you on that. I'm also an outdoorsman, love to be outside, and so I see the power of God's creation in my own life regularly. Yeah, kids do come to camp addicted to having something attached to them. Their thumb muscles are strong, the strongest muscles in their body for texting all the time. Most of our camps tell me that they still forbid technology devices, from iPads to iPods to phones, during the camp experience, so kids will turn those in. We have heard a funny story of a dad who sent 3 phones with his child to camp, because then one could be turned in kind of as the dummy phone when they ask for your phone. One could be used, and if you got caught, you'd have a backup. And so even parents sometimes will support kids in their addiction, or at least, they call them helicopter parents, mom and dad who want to hover over the kid and stay connected at all times. I understand that. I'm a parent myself, but they don't know just how very good it can be for a child to suddenly be disconnected to all those things and then hear the voice of God, perhaps for the first time.
Wonderful. All right, so where do people go to get more information about this?
Well, again, I suggest that anybody who wants more information can go to thepowerofcamp.com. Right. They can watch a video there of what it's a short video, about 3 minutes, kind of a promotional video for camp and just the great experience that it can be. They can find a camp for a child to go to, and whether that's nieces, nephews, or your own children, grandchildren, or neighborhood kids, you can help them get to a camp. And if you want to find information about sending someone else who can't afford to go to camp, that could go to click on the button "Send a Kid to Camp" at that spot.
Hey, thanks for what you do. Blessings on you and your organization. Gregg, this is just wonderful, and best to you, my friend. Let's stay in touch and see how this season goes, okay?
That'll be great.
All right, God bless.
Thank you, Perry.
All right. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at the Dove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.